Hello everyone, my name is the Clever Fool. Today I'll be playing the third episode of Jadwiga, titled Duel of the Dukes. No achievement for this one, let's just go ahead and dive right in.
Since a king's word is supreme, who can say to him, "What are you doing?" So says the preacher. Vytautas, Jogaila's cousin, disagreed. Back in Lithuania, he was building an alliance of noblemen who would rather have him as duke than Jogaila. And people were flocking to him. Many of the Lithuanian nobles were disillusioned with Jogaila's reign. The few times the king went back to Lithuania, he spent his days converting the people to Christianity en masse and burning pagan holy sites. The things we do for the Pope's approval. Vytautas was no pagan zealot, but he knew an opportunity when he saw one. As the son of Kęstutis, a former Duke of Lithuania who had been killed on Jogaila's orders, he also had a bone to pick with his cousin. That personal mission of revenge resonated with the Lithuanian people. Even though Vytautas, being quite accustomed to that ruthless political climate, used it mostly for political gains. But, as I said, Vytautas knew an opportunity when he saw one.
He's got two portraits of him smirking. Our main objectives are to wait for instructions. Our hints tell us that in this mission you will be fighting across the entire map, often in several locations at once, with the goal of seizing enemy towns by destroying their castles. For the most part, you will not have to worry about gathering resources, as you will receive continuous tributes from your Polish allies. However, there is a small economic base in your starting location where you can gather extra resources if you need them. You cannot build any new buildings in this mission, nor can you produce any new villagers. You also do not need to build houses to maintain your population limit of 200. Okay, this is going to be a different flavor of mission, so to speak. Be aggressive. Vytautas will not rest on his laurels, and neither can you if you want to win. When selecting your starting towns, be careful which choices you make. For example, if you do not pick a starting town that can produce infantry, you will need to conquer one before you can train that type of unit. Remember that you can only control the military production buildings, not including docks or monasteries, and blacksmiths in a town. Beware of foreign interventions. Some neutral factions might see this civil war as an opportunity to expand their own realms. Your scouts report that Jogaila and Jadwiga in red have arrived in a war-torn Lithuania and set up a small economic camp. They control 3 of the 9 towns in this region. Meanwhile, Vytautas in green has a small economic base as well as 6 towns under his control. His starting position is stronger, so you must act quickly to even the odds. To the west lies the realm of the Teutonic Order in gray. The Order is the neutral faction in this war, ostensibly. Its ranks have recently swelled with volunteers from Western Europe, soldiers eager to fight against the Eastern pagans, by which they mean you. The villages and towns of Lithuania and Sion have rather unwillingly lent their homes and fields as the stage for this great war, but they will take no part in it themselves. Lastly, a contingent of Muscovite soldiers has been seen marching into Lithuania from the far north. While they appear to be a neutral faction, they may have thrown their lot in with Vytautas. Wow, things are not looking good for us here. Okay, for this particular mission, it is a risk-style mission, and I'm going to do post-commentary because commentating this mission in the middle of all the chaos is a bit beyond my scope.
No wonder that Lithuania now looks to me as its leader.
Let's just go ahead and pay attention to this conversation real quick.
Scurry back to Poland and leave these lands to a proper ruler.
I should have murdered him when I killed his father, Kęstutis. Very well. If Vytautas will not relinquish my lands, I will take them by force. Tell me, which towns are still loyal to me?
Alright, so what you can do in this mission is you essentially take turns selecting out of the 6 remaining factions, which factions you want. What I select right away is the northernmost city that has the Wonder in it because it gives us access to stables. The one directly to the left of that because it gives us chemistry. And then lastly, the one in the far left. And the reason why I do this is because my initial attack force of trebuchets is actually going to be able to seize the closest base right away, so it'll give us 2 sources of cavalry right away. That castle is extremely exposed from the angle that we're coming across at. So this allows us to take some early pressure off of us because the enemy won't be producing as many cavalry at the start. So that's stratagem number 1. Stratagem number 2 is to give, by picking that leftmost university city, I get chemistry, and that makes my castle stronger, that makes my archers stronger, which is really good. Right now I'm just rebalancing my economy a little bit because food is going to be much more valuable than wood, since I'm going to be churning out a lot of cavalry and a lot of obuks. Now, as soon as you capture 1 or 2, I think it might just be 1 city, then what will happen is that Muscovy will spawn a bunch of units in and help their ally Vytautas. Now, this is a fixed force. After you defeat them, they won't produce any more units. They'll just be completely defeated. Might actually be 2... I'm not sure if it's on a timer or if it's on the number of cities that you've captured. I think it's as soon as you capture the first city. They come from the north of the map, and they have lots of bowyers, cavalry archers, and a couple of trebuchets. And they're quite a formidable force. Now, as you can see here, what's happening is that Green actually sent out their force of archers here, all by their lonesome, and we're going to run them down with our cavalry, and we're going to blitz and take that southernmost archery range city. And that city is important because it contains a blacksmith. As soon as we capture that, we're going to make sure that we research all 3 of the remaining Imperial Age blacksmith techs so that our units are strong. Here I'm just pumping out as many cavalry as I can and also researching the cavalry upgrades. By not directly baiting orange here, I actually get them to bait their units completely around, and I'll have these cavalier that I started producing snipe these trebuchets. That'll essentially let me hold on to that northernmost cavalry base for much, much longer. I want to save these trebs if I can, because I'll be needing them to make an additional assault. Now, what seems to happen is that every time you lose a city and every time you capture a city, you actually gain resources. And I wasn't paying attention to exactly how much you gain. I don't know if you gain more by capturing or if you lose by capturing. But that's an important note to keep track of as well. Because it might be, in some cases, worthwhile to allow your city to get captured by letting the castle go down. And it'll give you a bonus of resources. And then having a bunch of trebuchets or rams or something in place to destroy the castle that pops up for Vytautas right away. This way the city switches back in control to you, and you're able to get a double booster shot of resources, so to speak. Another benefit is that if you recapture a city, all of the production buildings that are in the city get rebuilt. So if you happen to lose some production buildings and you see an opportunity to let it get captured, the city get captured, and immediately recapture it, you'll get more production buildings back. This is primarily for the stables, which is super important. Another really important thing is to make sure that you're using all your resources and buildings. Production is actually one of the most valuable resources in this scenario, especially early on. You want to act fast. Having 2 stables or even 4 stables to produce cavalry is not going to be good enough. And you do want to mix in some archers to be able to take out halberdiers and stuff like that. Archers are also quite good for standing inside walls and taking out enemy units from afar, so they're good for that as well. I'm about to lose this base to green, but that's okay. As you can see, what's about to happen is that I'm going to get some resources once that castle goes down.
I believe that this town is
We get some wood and gold, I believe. It allows us to rebuild some siege weapons. So now that we've captured the blacksmith and regained all of our blacksmith techs, we can kind of safely ignore that southern city for a little while. It's not under too much danger. What we want to do now is to actually capture this middle citadel. This middle citadel will give us a staging point on the rest of the bases in the region. Of course, we weren't allowed to select this citadel at the start, so that's why we want to capture it. In fact, Vytautas' starting 3 citadels are all very strong, especially the one in the furthest east. That one has 4 stables, a castle, and a siege workshop. So if you can capture that one, then you are in great shape. Also, in my earlier playthroughs, I noticed that their bridges are also broken, so that rightmost citadel is really hard to assault. It also has a bunch of towers in it too. So if you can grab that citadel, then you'll be in much stronger shape. Now the problem is that that's deep in Vytautas' starting territory, and he'll be churning out cavalry the entire time. Polish pikemen here are not very strong, unfortunately, but because they're good against cavalry, it's good to keep pikemen around. Pikemen can also destroy rams in a pinch. Here I'm trying to back my trebuchets into my leftmost base now, just to keep them safe, and here I am spamming some crossbowmen.
Our brave leader Jogaila has been wounded. Bring him back to camp and tend to his
Your hero
injuries.
units will not respawn this mission if they die, but there's no real way to keep them alive amidst the chaos, and it's not super worth it because they're just one unit after all. Really, in this mission, the quick training time of the Obiks is going to come in really handy. Now, Vytautas plays as the Lithuanians, and so he trains Laisha inside his castles. And because every base has a castle, unfortunately, Vytautas will always be able to produce cavalry, so long as you haven't won the mission yet. There was Muscovy resigning because they've run out of units. And now things are looking kind of bad. That block of green units is super strong in the middle there. It's absolutely eating up our units. And we ourselves only have 80 or so military units scattered around all over the place. There I'm rotating my squad of archers to the center to help out in the center here. I don't want to lose those stables because those stables are my only means of producing cavalry right now. Now you can't lose momentum. The enemy has infinite resources and you only get resources from losing or gaining citadels. So if you play too defensively, then eventually you'll lose out on momentum-wise. If you happen to drop down to 2 out of 8 towns remaining, you'll actually get some reinforcements back in the far left where your economy is. It'll be a bunch of winged hussars, some elite obuks, and some cavaliers. You won't get any siege weapons, however, so if you're down to 2 towns at that point, you're going to be in really, really big trouble. If all goes well, you will not fall down to such desperate times. An important concept for this mission is to use your castles well. You want your castles to be able to kill off a lot of the enemy infantry, archers, and cavalry, because unit by unit you're not going to be able to trade out super well, at least not right away. Now fortunately for balance reasons, it seems like despite the fact that the enemy is an Imperial Age, they don't have all the Imperial Age upgrades. So that's good. Your units will be stronger if you can manage to capture the blacksmith and get your own Imperial Age upgrades out. Their unit compositions, however, are overall better because of the Laishai and the amount of stables that they get. Now here you can see me using my strategy in action, which is I'm allowing that trebuchet to destroy the castle, and I get 400 wood and 300 gold in tribute. But right away, I have 3 trebuchets inside the gates, ready to take the castle back. And you'll see that I get another booster shot of resources as soon as that happens. This block of Arbalesters is turning out to be super useful. distracting the cavalry and deleting a lot of those units, actually. And as soon as this castle comes back under our control, we get lots of wood and gold. Look at that, 1,500 food, 1,000 gold, 1,000 wood or something like that. So it's a really, really strong bolster and allows me to replenish my forces extremely well here. I think this critical moment was a key to a victory in my strategy here. Now, another important thing is to not take too many cities out. If you seize 6 towns, I believe that activates the Teutonic Order. And the Teutonic Order trains bombard cannons, elite Teutonic knights, paladins, onagers, and crossbowmen. In short, they're a pretty strong force in their own right, and having to deal with Vytautas and the Teutonic Order at the same time is definitely not an experience that you want to endure, unless you absolutely have to. You can see now that I'm actually floating a ton of wood. So this is where the next aspect of the strategy comes in. I know that after capturing 6 towns, it'll activate the Teutonic Order. And I know that the rightmost city has 4 stables, a siege workshop, and is super defensible. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bypass the city directly to the right of my central city here, and I am going to destroy the castle in the rightmost area to capture that town. You'll see me put the plan into effect as soon as I fend off these waves of enemy cavalry here. I gotta say, this has been one of the most difficult missions out of the DLC so far. I had to try it a few times. I kind of just blindly went through it 2 or 3 times until I realized that it was super chaotic and I wasn't going to be able to do a live commentary of it. Then I started breaking down some strategies from various triggers that I noticed within the scenario. Cavalry is super key for these missions because they are mobile and they can take out siege weapons outside of the city walls, and they can easily reinforce other cities as they need to. As for your archers and your pikemen, you want to rotate them to cities that you know will come under attack. You need to be a little bit more predictive with these types of forces because they can't move around easily on the map without getting picked off by cavalry or cavalry archers. Another thing that you want to be very careful of is these trebuchets. You want to make sure that the trebuchets don't get opportunities to take out too much of your castle HP because your villagers will not be available to repair them. You can't train new villagers in this scenario, and you can't build military buildings in this scenario. So now I'm preparing to move out with my entire army. I have a bunch of trebs. In order for this to work, I essentially need my trebs to be able to take out that castle in just a few volleys. Taking a pretty big risk, but it is a certainly worthwhile risk. As you can see, I'm running very low on resources now. Another thing to consider is placing defensive trebuchets next to your castles. Having defensive trebuchets next to your castles allows your trebuchets to start shooting at enemy trebuchets that are setting up to destroy those castles. It's more useful than you might think. I know a lot of professional players do it in multiplayer, so having this concept actually be useful in single player is extremely refreshing as well. I know this wave of cavalry came from the rightmost citadel, so I'm totally willing to fight them, because if I can take out that wave, then it gives me a window of opportunity to take out the castle in the rightmost citadel without having too much of a resistance force available over there. This is one of the reasons why I didn't take the bottom right city there, the one that only had 2 barracks and a castle, because really the AI doesn't really do anything consequential with it. If they try to attack you from the right, right to left, your archer blacksmith city, then it doesn't really have too much of an effect because they really train halberdiers and they're rushing into your archers, so your archers will clean them up very easily. They will send the odd trebuchet over in that direction, but you can just quickly spawn a few obuks and rush down the trebuchet if you see them. Obuks also perform pretty well against halberdiers. So now comes the critical juncture. This castle goes down.
I never really liked that town anyway.
And those are bold words from Vytautas, considering that this is easily the strongest and most defensible citadel.
Lord Vytautas promised us the lands of Samovicia if we would join him. Now, who could refuse a chance at converting the last true pagans in Europe? For now, we march with Vytautas.
Even though the Polish aren't really known for having the strongest archers, I believe they lack the last armor upgrade. Archers are still extremely useful in this mission. Having a block of archers able to snipe enemies from the walls is extremely strong and extremely cost effective, which you'll need to be in order to fight your enemies well here. I noticed also that the Lithuanians don't upgrade to Winged Hussar. I imagine that's for balance purposes. So here's where a part of my strategy doesn't actually execute very well. I figured, hey, we have these trebuchets, there's a path to the north of the map, let's try to take this castle out, the one that we selected at the very beginning that gives us cavalry access. If I can take out stable production from Vytautas completely, then it would essentially trivialize them as the enemy. As you can see though, this doesn't actually work. What happened was that as soon as I destroyed a castle, it would just immediately spawn another green castle right in the spot where I destroyed it. So for whatever reason, the AI just does not allow you to capture that city. I think this might be because I have control of the rightmost citadel. I'm assuming that it doesn't want you to have control of both right-hand citadels. So this might be like a counterbalancing measure. Now, unfortunately, I don't really like this because, in my opinion, taking control of the rightmost citadels is a very, very sound strategy. And this was how I designed my original strategy to go. And the fact that it doesn't work causes me to lose that entire squad of cavalry, and it causes me to lose that entire block of trebuchets, which is really, really annoying, and it slows me down in my strategy greatly. I was really annoyed at this point, and I thought I might even need to restart because I lost so much momentum from not being able to actually destroy this castle and capture the area. Check it out.
You are quite the celebrity within Jogaila.
I don't know why that happens. It might be some trigger that's set. It might even be because there are a few Muscovy units just kind of sitting in there. Who knows? But as soon as I saw that this was not going to work, I realized I had to change tack. I even tried it like a second time. You can see I would have destroyed this castle many times over, but it was just not to be. So realizing that I had failed in that front, I decided to actually capture the citadel to the right of the central citadel. The one that's between the Uber citadel on the far right and the one that's in the center of the map. That one is an archery citadel. I'm just expressing some frustration here. Why won't that one go down? I don't understand. Why won't that one go down? Then I realized that I could go on the attack here. And I do in fact lose that bottom left blacksmith city for a little while.
Vytautas has captured one of our towns. Pray that we retake it.
Which is okay. Remember, when I recapture it, I'll gain a big block of resources. That makes no sense. Yeah, so I got really frustrated at this point because I was worried that with the momentum loss, I would lose all my holdings in quick succession. Especially considering that I didn't have very many resources at this point. I needed to capture a citadel here really quickly, otherwise I'd get bled out. At this point in the video, or at some point in this video, the FPS drops down to a ridiculously low amount. I don't know why it is. I assume it's because of the crud ton of units moving about the map, but it drops down to like 15 or something like that. I very rarely have performance issues with this game. I think the last time I had performance issues with this game was in the York historical battle.
Another victory for the Union.
I'll let you guys know when that FPS drop happens. Fortunately, capturing this citadel gives us a bunch of resources again. And with the easternmost citadel on my side, I'm able to get winged hussars out very quickly. Now I noticed that my central citadel is getting very low now, so I need to perform another shenanigan where I lower the HP significantly so that I can recapture the citadel quickly. These maneuvers are absolutely vital in this kind of mission, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to complete it. I think this is where the FPS loss, oh gosh, yep. This is where the FPS loss begins to happen. Enjoy the slideshow, folks. I just saw that Teutonic bombard cannon kill one of their own allies, Latis. In any case, I realize now that this citadel that we were just on the screen of is also vulnerable. So in order to get another booster shot, I can just destroy that citadel. So I'm going on a right to left sweep of captures to gain more resources and get closer to completing the objective.
I believe that this town is mine now.
Again, I fully intend to recapture that center citadel ASAP. It's too strong of a connection between the bases that I have remaining. But now, as you can see, we essentially swapped places. I have the right two citadels and the left one that's close to my base. And still have the university citadel this entire time, by the way. That one doesn't really come under attack. So land is definitely changing hands all the time here.
I never really liked that town anyway.
So Ostro comes back, and we get 3k food, we have 1k gold, and you can see my trebs are going to set up, and I'm going to get another boost of resources. This is the aspect of the strategy that you really must perfect if you want to win this game cleanly.
Another victory for the Union.
Just like that, I get a full health castle in the center again. And I have almost 2,000 gold in the bank. And now we are going to recapture that bottom left citadel too. It produced us a lot of arbalesters. The top one can produce arbalesters too. If I had to balance the resources a little bit better, I would probably have sold more wood and maybe only had 2 wood choppers and had more farmers. We have trebuchets counter-trebbing. I'm trying to see if that onager will get baited into range so that the castle can snipe it. The ranged citadels are not good for Vytautas because the Lithuanian crossbow line is really bad. But because we have so many cities here, the flow of enemies coming in is actually much slower. As opposed to being 3v5 or 2v6, when you're 6v2, then the enemy numbers are much more manageable. And it's in fact the Teutonic Order that has to prop up the opponents to even pose a challenge. Once you get to 6, if you can hold on to 6, like we are now, then you are in a great shape to win the mission.
I never really liked that town anyway.
We only have 1 more town left to seize. I'm not even going to try assaulting that north town because I failed to do it the first time, despite destroying the castle 2 or 3 times. The last thing that you need to worry about if you opt to go with a similar strategy as mine is if the remaining cities are in the west, that's where the Teutonic Order comes from, so you have to be prepared for intercepting units from the Teutonic Order in addition to whatever units are being produced by the last city.
Do waszych usług. Pojmuję was.
So at this point, I could also have taken out the Teutonic Order if I really wanted to. You could maybe make that content in a future mission, but in all honesty, there's no reason to. I already know that I can, because the 2 remaining towns are not going to produce too much against us. The Order is the main enemy, really, at this point. So going after them first, while it could be fun and funny, is completely unnecessary. So I decided not to, just to make sure that I could get good footage of actually completing the mission.
Do waszych usług. Dobrze, tak uczynię. Pojmuję was. Jakieś rozkazania? Do waszych usług. Jakieś rozkazania? Owszem, do waszych usług. Owszem, tak, jakieś rozkazania? Do waszych usług. Tak uczynię. Owszem.
Not much else to say here. Obuk's armor stripping capabilities make them perform pretty well on beefy units like Paladins and Teutonic Knights.
Owszem, dobrze. Jakieś rozkazania? Pojmuję was.
But now we are going on our victory lap here.
Do waszych usług.
shot.
Jakieś rozkazania?
I decide to retreat these arbalesters because I don't want them eating the onager shots. This is the final push, really, so long as I can clean up those onagers and they don't clean up the trebs, in a couple volleys that castle will be down and we will be victorious.
Atakujmy!
Another victory for the Union.
This war is bleeding our lands dry. What say you, Vytautas? Shall we settle this in a more civilized manner?
Aye. The swords have spoken. Now let the pens make the final scene.
Dobra naprzód!
Vytautas, much like Jogaila, was at heart a pragmatist. Apparently that is what they called themselves. The men who would shake hands with their father's murderer for a bit of land and a slightly fancier title. As total victory proved impossible, Vytautas settled for a partial one. He would become Duke of Lithuania, claiming Jogaila's old title, but Jogaila would remain his overlord. And with the stroke of a pen, the Lithuanian civil war came to a close. For all the bloodshed we had seen, I believe that something was born that day that will eclipse any of their military victories. A true union between our countries. It happened gradually, but it dawned on me at last why I had been put in this role as queen. I had been placed there by Providence to preserve this union. This bond of peace between two countries and their peoples. It is a beautiful thing, peace. A rare thing. A golden seam that glitters only for a moment in the fabric of reality. If I leave no other legacy than having kept this union intact for a few more years, I shall have served my people well.
Alright. Anyway, that was probably the most difficult mission of the DLC so far. My name is The Clever Fool. I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Do waszych usług. Jakieś rozkazania? Do waszych usług.